We're going to go back now to covering this launch. Willie, there's so much going on here. This is really exciting.
It is. It's an exciting morning. It just lifted off. Let's go straight to Tom Costello, who covers aviation, among many other things, for us. Tom, it doesn't matter how many times we see it. There is a thrill to watching one of these rockets take off. For people just joining us and just waking up, what happened about 12 minutes ago?
5:49 a.m. Eastern Time, we had a SpaceX Crew 2, the rocket with Dragon on top. That's the space capsule lifting off from the Kennedy Space Center in yet another picture-perfect launch here. And then within 11, 12 minutes, they have already reached orbit, 17,000 miles per hour on their way towards the International Space Station. What is amazing here, guys, is as we have reported time and again, the SpaceX track record on putting people into orbit has been perfect. Every single launch so far has gone without a hitch. Same thing again today. On board, we have 4 astronauts. Commander Shane Kimbrough. I'm listening to mission control as we go here. Commander Shane Kimbrough. Pilot Megan McArthur.
Have a great rest of your trip. Say hi to the crew of Dragon Resilience Launch and let them know your rocket is home safe.
All right. Well, they're congratulating the crew and each other for a great orbital insertion. I wanted to mention the pilot, Megan McArthur. If you missed it earlier, she is sitting in the exact same seat in the exact same space capsule that her husband was in a year ago. Bob Behnken was in the very first SpaceX manned mission, or crewed mission, we should say. And now she is sitting in the same seat as the pilot. So, again, Commander Shane Kimbrough. We got pilot Megan McArthur. We've got European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. And by the way, the first time a European has been coming on a NASA rocket in 10 years. Keep in mind the NASA rockets have been grounded, of course, since the space shuttle was retired. And then also a Japanese astronaut, Akiko Hoshide, who's a veteran of the Japanese Space Agency and also a veteran astronaut. So all 4 now on their way to a 6-month mission on the International Space Station. The one piece of video, guys, I'm waiting to see, and we've had a little bit of a telemetry problem, of the download problem. I'm not sure if we just missed it, but I'm waiting to see that shot of the rocket landing, the booster rocket landing out there on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This is all part of the SpaceX model of doing business, right? They're driving down the cost of space travel because they reuse these parts. So literally, this booster rocket that is flying today was on the same flight a year ago. And the space capsule, Dragon, as we mentioned, flew a year ago. They're reusing these pieces and trying to, therefore, drive down the cost all along. 6-month mission on the space station. They're doing an awful lot of science, 200 science experiments while they're up there. But this is all part of now turning over space travel very much to the private sector. SpaceX owns it right now. Eventually, the hope is Boeing will also be contributing.
As you say, that moment, and we haven't seen it yet, we'll be looking for it when the booster lands, which is unique to SpaceX, almost as astounding as the liftoff itself. Look at these pictures. That's just a breathtaking image we're seeing on the right side of your screen there, Tom. So if you can, four astronauts, 3 countries represented here, a little bit about why they're on their way up there, what they're headed to do at the International Space Station.
Well, like I said, it's a 6-month mission, and they will now bring to 11 the total number on board the space station. As you know, this is all part of a constant presence on board the station. And now that America is flying its own rockets with its own crews up to the station, no longer fully dependent on the Russians, we're at a full workforce, if you will, on the station. In fact, it's a little crowded up there. They haven't had 11 people on board in years. The most they had before this, I think, was 13 or 14 or so. And if you missed it, this is kind of an interesting piece of information. They just put a 3rd commode up there, a 3rd toilet. Good news, right? You've got 11 people up there. They got a 3rd commode, but they don't have enough sleeping quarters for all 11. As a result, at least 2, maybe 3 of these astronauts will have to get into a sleeping bag when they're on station and tether themselves to a wall or to a ceiling or or whatever for just about a week or so until the crew that arrived last May comes back to Earth. We expect that last November, until that crew that launched last November expects to come back to Earth probably next week or so. Not a big deal, according to the NASA chief who I talked to. He said, listen, this is the third dimension when you're in space. You don't have to always be, crowded into a room. You could be floating to the ceiling, and it doesn't really matter. So, and one astronaut told me she had phenomenal sleep up there in space. So it'll be a little crowded for a few days, but by next week, they should all have their own sleeping berths to themselves.
Growing family needs that third bathroom. We know that very well, Tom. So we just saw images from inside the rocket there of, frankly, the astronauts looking pretty casual, sitting back on their iPads. What are they experiencing right now physically? How fast are they going? What's it like in there?
Yeah, well, they've now hit 17,000 miles per hour, and they will stay at that trajectory until they dock with the space station at about 5:10 a.m. tomorrow Eastern time. I think these images are fantastic. I love the SpaceX way of doing things. They put a small camera, a GoPro, on every possible vantage point, and then they beam all those images back down to Earth live. I mean, look at these spectacular images of the Earth, and you get a piece of the rocket engine there. It's all really phenomenal. Yeah, listen, the other part of this equation we haven't talked about much is Boeing. If you had banked on which of these big companies, SpaceX or Boeing, would be really take the lead in getting people into space, if you would have banked on this 10 years ago, you probably would have said Boeing. They've been around the longest. But Boeing has really struggled. You may recall in December of 2019, they did an unmanned test of their spacecraft. It did not go well at all. They had to abort. They had a software problem. The clock on the spaceship was literally off by 11 hours. They had to bring the thing back down to Earth. Thankfully, no humans were on board, and they have struggled to recover from that. Now, they say that they are now ready to do another test mission with that Boeing spacecraft. But guess what? The launch schedule here at the Kennedy Space Center is so busy, so packed. The Boeing probably won't be able to test their unmanned vehicle, until September or so. So we are not going to have a manned mission involving the Boeing crew vehicle. Maybe the end of this year, maybe into next year. So they are really behind SpaceX at this point.
All right, Tom Costello, Crew 2 blasting off from pad 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. The Crew Dragon capsule carrying those 4 astronauts from 3 different countries. Just a beautiful sight. Tom, thanks so much. I'm sure we'll be back to you this morning.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.